Hello, I'm Alex Lawson.
And I'm James Labuse.
And this is Rabonas and Rhythms, a podcast combining our love for the beautiful game with an equal passion for music from far-flung places.
Each episode, we bring you a story from world football folklore and neatly tie it all together by playing some music from the country we're talking about.
You could call it musical football tourism from the comfort of your iPhone or pure football hipster indulgence. Either way, we don't care.
This time out, we're travelling across the world to the sunny climes of the Caribbean to discuss the strangest game in international football and the Calypso King of the world. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I've got my flamboyant shirt on. I've got a pina colada. I'm kicking back. I'm enjoying the Caribbean. I look beautiful, don't I? But I've been looking forward to this one desperately. The weirdest match that ever took place.
So, this is the scenario. It's the Caribbean Cup 1994 Group A match at the Barbados National Stadium. Barbados have never won the tournament, which is dominated, not that unsurprisingly, by Jamaica and Trinidad.
Yeah, well, they're the only two that obviously made it to the World Cup finals themselves, Jamaica in 98 and Trinidad in 2006.
Other winners of the Caribbean Cup have been Martinique, Haiti and Cuba. I mean, we're going to cover lots of strange and quirky facts about the rules of this tournament.
The thing about this match is you just need to accept that this is what the rules were and it's mad. So it's a bizarre tournament. It's a 3-team group. The top team goes through. Now, we've had the first couple of games. So Grenada are top of the group. They beat Puerto Rico, who also scored a win over Barbados. So Barbados are languishing in last. They got -1 goal difference. But two quirky things about this bizarre tournament. You can't draw, and golden goals count for double. So if you can get a golden goal in the last minute, not only is it an instant victory like the classic golden goal, but also they count for double. So all of this means that it's very tight going into the last game. Puerto Rico have already done everything they can. They've played their 2 games. They're sandwiched in the middle of these 2 teams. They have to watch. Barbados have to win by 2 clear goals. Grenada can afford a defeat, but only narrowly by 1 to Barbados. So after 80 odd minutes, how had the game gone so far?
Yeah, well, 80 minutes, Barbados were 2-0 up. And then Grenada then managed to pull one back in the 83rd minute. So it was 2-1 at this point. So
at this point, both players and crowd are trying to work out exactly what this means. And the Barbados team the previous night had been savvy enough to think, okay, the rules are a bit odd here. We're down 1 on the goal difference front. There may be something that we need to do in this scenario. The Grenadan team, only Cheney Joseph, the team captain, and the manager James Clarkson actually got their heads together and thought about this. I
guess if you're the team, sort of the favourites, then you might not necessarily spend as much time sort of thinking about this scenario.
I mean, Grenada thought they were going to walk the group, so they hadn't really countenanced being 2-0 down. Obviously, the margin of victory that Barbados needed, pulled that one back. So, 2-1. Barbados got 7 minutes to go. They start pounding the Grenadan defence, trying to score that to make it 3-1, get the 2-goal margin they need. I tell you what, instead of attack, why don't we try and score our own goal and take it to extra time, where they could then have more chance of scoring a goal that they needed to go through. So it's mad, absolutely mad.
So this was Barbados implementing the plan that they talked about the night before.
Exactly, yeah. So they decided to work this out and did it. And so when you watch it, just describe to me, Boost, the defender gets the ball maybe 3 yards from goal, right?
It's a brilliant piece of footage because you can actually see that the goalkeeper and the defender are kicking the ball to each other about like 3 feet apart. No other players in sight, and you could just see them talking to each other. So they're obviously playing this through their minds. Go, are we doing this then?
Yeah.
Are we do this? And then after about the 10th sort of pass, the defender just like smashes it into the back of the net, and the goalkeeper looks kind of stunned, a bit. I guess a bit like oh right, we're actually doing this.
Yeah, it's a packed stadium, and this is. Albeit in the laws of the game, you've got to think what it looks like to everyone in front of you if you do that. So the scenario now, 2-2. The Grenadans catch on. This is what they've done. They're taking it to extra time. But they know that if they win 3-2 by scoring, obviously, in the Barbados net, or they concede an own goal, and then obviously they can still go through with a narrow victory. The goal difference is still in their favour. So they can try and attack either net. What ensues is 3 mad minutes where the players are running around. The Barbados striker decides to defend his own goal. They're obviously defending their normal goal as well. And they're basically sort of running around. It's basically like a schoolyard game, isn't it? Where everyone's running after the ball. Obviously, a lot of this wouldn't happen in other leagues for whatever reason, but yeah, I guess in a league that had time wasting, they might not have these bizarre rules. So in extra time, the inevitable happens. Trevor Thorne, the star striker for Barbados, steps up, scores actually a lovely little finish, sort of diagonal across the keeper, and the Barbados team win 4-2. The fallout from the game.
So that's because of these 2 extra goals.
Yeah, so they won 4-2, the 2-goal margin. They advanced. The Grenadans absolutely gutted, out on the floor. They were favourites for the group. They were in the box seat. When they got to 2-1, they thought, actually, that's us through. And then hadn't counted on that. If you're a player on the pitch, is it on you to know the exact scenario, or is it down to the manager to try and filter that out if things are changing constantly through the match?
I think it should be down to the manager. I mean, this scenario, this story took me about 2 weeks to understand.
Yeah, but I suppose we saw it in the Euros back in the summer when they changed the rules so 3 teams could go through in some scenarios. And you had games like the Portuguese ding-dong with the Hungarians, it was 3-3, then the Icelandics scoring the last minute, and suddenly they're through. And no one in either match really knows what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with these rule changes. I mean, even the tournament organisers don't really know.
No.
Well, they might have gone through some scenarios, but it's impossible to foresee every possibility.
I think the thing about football is, one of the reasons it's so appealing the world over is because it's such a simple game. And when you have scenarios where actually the most fundamental rule of the game is if you score more than the other team in their net, you win, is undermined, then you're going to be off to a losing kind of start. And it's safe to say the rules were changed after this. What do you think are the biggest rule changes in football over the last, say, 50 years in the game in its sort of modern form?
Certainly the pass-back rule. Just the amount of times that the ball went back to the goalkeeper and how slow the pace of the game was. Because the ball would be rolled back to the goalkeeper, he'd pick it up, bounce it a couple of times, put it down back of the ground.
And the players would just retreat to the other end of the pitch because it was more long ball then anyway. So you'd see that. I mean, God bless my beloved Sheffield Wednesday, our 1-0 victory in the Rumbelows Cup final against Manchester United. Watching the VHS back number of times as I have, watching the keeper Chris Turner just bounce it over and over again. The one that's a terrible rule change, tackle from behind. It was great to see a tackle from behind. Good, quality tacklers like, for example, Vinnie Jones. You want to be able to see that in all its splendour, but unfortunately that's been taken from us. So one of the amazing things about this game is obviously the golden goal counts for double rule. Where on earth they got that from, I don't know, but what about golden goal? Should we have it or not? We've had silver goal, we've had golden goal. Now we're back to basically just normal 30 minutes of extra time. For the most part, those 30 minutes are usually very conservative, a group of knackered players. Can anything be done? Should we go straight to penalties? Is there anything any ideas that you think? I mean, what do you think golden goal?
Well, I remember the Euro '96, and obviously England went out to Germany on penalties, and then Oliver Bierhoff scored the golden goal in the final against the Czechs. I mean, what a way to win a tournament! Golden goals probably made extra time more exciting. The
thinking was obviously that, but then the reality was that the players were so nervous that they wouldn't attack. I just wonder whether an iteration like this, where there's a real incentive, like the 2 extra goals, take it out of the context of a group stage where goal difference counts or things like that. So, you've got the 2 extra goals. So then I suppose if you have to counter against that, then you're going to create a really, really lively game. But again, it probably comes back to this idea of whether it's in the spirit of the game for a goal to suddenly count double. It rips up every other sort of rule that we're used to. But I do think that I'm open to there being another rule change for extra time, or just being shorter extra time. I think the players are often just ready for penalties. It's very rare that you see a really one-sided extra time where the team is just knocking on the door and the other team is just hanging on for penalties. It does obviously happen. Now, the fallout from this game was quite considerable, as you can imagine. The Grenadans were devastated. They were out on the floor of the pitch. And there was a great quote from the boss, James Clarkson, wasn't there?
He said, "I feel cheated. The person who came up with these rules must be a candidate for the madhouse. The game should never be played with so many players running around the field confused. Our players did not even know which direction to attack, our goal or their goal. I've never seen this happen before. In football, you are supposed to score against the opponents to win, not for them." And I suppose that last point is really the crux of the issue.
You wouldn't think it would need saying, would you? But it's true. I thought this was a good excuse also to talk about some other examples of deliberate own goals in other matches, actually all sort of around the world. So there was one in the 1998 Tiger Cup in Vietnam between Thailand and Indonesia, where the Indonesian defender, if you watch it, it's fantastic. He basically deliberately scores the own goal, a header, so they don't have to face Vietnam in the next round. Sort of political tensions were at play there. And there was obviously the best known one is in the 1982 World Cup, the disgrace of Goujon between West Germany and Austria, where they basically agreed that 1-0 win. If you watch the last 10 minutes of that, it's just pathetic. Do you remember that Simpsons episode where they show them watching soccer, as they call it, and it's like it's like front to centre, back to the front, and it's just knocking it back and forth. And I think that is probably the most pathetic example of playing to these kind of rules and what they can engender. But obviously you've got to make sure the right number of teams get through in tournament football, and it isn't easy unless you do a straight knockout. It's the only way you can guarantee that everything is fair and equal, but it doesn't allow for a team to have an off game and still get through, I suppose.
That's true. If you had that, then some of the smaller nations would only have 1 or 2 games, and that seems a shame as well.
So we decided we'd catch up with someone who was actually in this bizarre game. Cheney Joseph was the captain of Grenada that day, and he related his experiences to me.
We felt confident that we would win the game within regulation time. But the mistake I think we made, everyone said, no, let's not tell all the players.
Did you have a chance to sort of regroup and say, look, let's try and win this?
Our manager, James Clarkson, and he was trying to give instructions to so many people. The time between the end of regulation and the restart of the extra time was seemingly so short that I don't believe he got his message across. It was too difficult for players under pressure to tactically analyze. Our goalkeeper was not aware of the rules, even at halftime or after the regulation time.
Right.
So there was one instance where the ball was kicked towards him, and he was supposed to missave, and he did not. Not realizing by missaving the ball, we were going to concede a goal, but we were going to gain possession. Unfortunately, we were not playing a good game that night. And there were instances, though, where we had the opportunity to go ahead. And we felt, no, it was too early to go ahead, because by going ahead, it means that Barbados would have received the kickoff, and they could have simply just do the opposite.
So you thought best to keep possession?
Right. So our intention was primarily to keep possession of the game.
So does that? Do you mean the other players were also in on that kind of idea of the plan to keep the possession, but they weren't sort of fully enlightened on the whole plan, or?
But I think the Barbados team, everyone knew. Unlike Grenada, maybe it was just about 2 or 3 of us. It was meant to be a secret.
Because where were you standing when he smashed the ball into his own net? Were you just a few yards away, or in the footage you can't really tell?
I myself was trying to get half of my team to understand, okay, maybe about 5 of you guys stay down to my goalkeeper's goal to defend that goal, and I was trying to get another 5 to go up to the Barbados goal to prevent Barbados from scoring on themselves.
And what was the crowd's reaction?
The crowd was confused. The only people who knew what the results would be would the players of Barbados leave.
Yeah.
So whereby Barbados scored on themselves, the crowd found it stupid on the part of them to do that.
Yeah.
It was not until they saw the Grenadian team walking away dejected,
Yeah.
they then realized that no, Grenada is no longer qualified to participate in the final. There was heated exchange. In fact, we referred to it as match fixing. Yeah, you know, and I still maintain it was the world's worst regulation ever introduced for football. That's my opinion. I still maintain that.
Rabonas and ritmi, raccontando le storie del calcio mondiale e della musica.
Okay, so this is the point in the podcast where we talk about the music.
Yeah, we
side
move
of
from
things.
feet to the ears seamlessly.
Or not so seamlessly. Honourable mention to Rihanna from Barbados.
Absolutely, if we're
From
talking
there.
about Caribbean musicians, she should probably rate herself as the most successful. The guy we're going to talk about today is the one and only Mighty Sparrow, the king of Calypso, as he's known.
Mighty Sparrow, or Birdie, born Slinger Francisco.
What a name! What a name!
He should have just kept that name.
He should. I mean, that's not bad, is it? But
It's not.
he was given his name by others, to be fair. But yeah, he was born
That
in
is true.
Trinity.
It was a kind of tradition for Calypso artists to emulate British royalty, strangely, hence Lord Kitchener and Lord Nelson. But Mighty Sparrow's name came from his sort of movements on stage, which were kind of jerky, in the style maybe of a little bit of Mick Jagger.
Yeah, they are
Yeah,
Jagger-esque
the
if you
strut.
watch it. And what I love about him is he always performs in a suit. You know, he's decked out, cummerbund, bow tie. You know, he's not messing around. He always looked immaculate. What he said of his nickname was nice, actually. He said, when I started singing, the bands were still using acoustic instruments and the singers would stand flat-footed, making a point or accusing someone in the crowd with the pointing of a finger, but mostly they stood motionless. When I sing, I get excited and move around, much like James Brown, and this was new to them. The older singer said, "Why don't you just sing instead of moving around like a little sparrow?" It was said as a joke, but the name stuck. It is great to see him perform like that, and it's interesting because Calypso was a political form of music, so you know, I guess his statement was to move around and make these statements about the government, whereas the others had previously sort of used being motionless to achieve the same effect.
How would you describe kind of Calypso as a style, Alex?
Basically, Calypso is all about a lot of upbeat energy bringing to the stage, but also expressing your political beliefs. Interesting because artists in the UK have traditionally used more downbeat music to express those kind of anger at those above them. I mean, Mighty Sparrow's biggest hit, Gene and Dinah, was about the US troops leaving Trinidad in the late 50s. And that sort of is very sort of besmirching of the US government. But he sings it all with a smile on his face, so there's that lovely kind of incongruous nature to it. And you know, he got himself in hot water a number of times for both his political beliefs and, you know, his lyrics are quite sexist at times. Yeah, there's an interesting quote from a critic on his song Congo Man.
Yeah, this critic Robert Christgau called this song a wildly perverse piss take on African roots, interracial revenge, interracial sex, male-female relations, and cannibalism. So he managed to get quite a few things in there.
I think you'd call that a bad review. I didn't take it, but I want to read you, please, some of the lyrics from Mighty Sparrow's "She Sits on Me," if you'll indulge me with it. So the song starts, "Now listen to my story, boys. I need your sympathy. That big, fat, tattooed girl in the circus fell in love with me. And to prove her love was sweet as sugarcane tandy, she had my picture tattooed on her body. She had the landing of the pilgrims on her shoulder, and on her back she had the sunset of the west. And right beside her dimpled knees is the great big apple trees, and the pyramids looked lovely on her chest. When she decided she'd like to add my picture, she simply couldn't find a vacant spot, you see, so she tattooed my poor face in the most peculiar place. Now whenever that girl sits down, she sits down on me. Whenever that girl sits down, she sits down on me." What a poet. I mean, that is something else. I mean, the other element to the Mighty Sparrow story was that he kind of actually enabled Calypso singers to get better paid, didn't he?
Yeah, he was almost like the union representative of Calypsos.
If I turned up to find a man singing those kind of songs was my union rep, and I would add that Mighty Sparrow sort of paints himself, he's now 81, paints himself as having achieved this. Not sure about what others think of that.
I guess it happened so long ago now that it's kind of difficult to separate fact from fiction. But allegedly, Mighty Sparrow wrote a song called Carnival Boycott as a protest against a carnival where the Beauty Queens won $7,500 and Calypso King of the carnival only won $40. Which seems pretty unfair when you think that music is quite important.
Yeah,
Calypso
quite.
music.
Just a bit. I mean, the Trini carnivals are just incredible when you see the pictures of them. I'd love to go one day. I mean, I'm a adopted West Londoner and I absolutely love the Notting Hill Carnival, and Calypso is such a big part of that. I just love that moment when the floats come past, just sort of drifting some steel drums. It gives it a different feel, and that obviously is what the sort of Notting Hill Carnival is about. What do you think about what Caribbean culture has given to the UK? It seems an incredible amount.
Huge amount. I think that immigrant population has been one of the biggest influences on British culture.
Yeah.
Especially musically.
Yeah.
When you think of all the different styles of music that are influenced by reggae.
Absolutely. I think particularly living down here in London, you see that influence so much more every day, be it in food or music. And I think it's now becoming sort of intrinsic part of British culture that we're proud to, I think Notting Hill Carnival, to take an example, is something that people come from all over Europe. It's Europe's biggest street festival to enjoy, and we sort of proudly shout it as British. So it's not to be understated the influence of people like Mighty Sparrow and Lord Kitchener, and they were probably the biggest names to be listened to internationally. But their influence, it needs to be kind of remembered beyond the generations. As I think if you sing in a glib style, people can often sort of brush you off, but actually that influence is not to be understated. So shall we listen to him?
Yeah, I'd absolutely love to.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been Rabonas and Rhythms. We're going to have to set sail home from the Caribbean. It's been a pleasure taking you through the crazy world of the Caribbean Cup and Mighty Sparrow. We're going to leave you with Mighty Sparrow's biggest hit. This is Gene and Dina, aka Yankees Gone, and it's an absolute classic.
No more Yankees in Trinidad. They're gonna close down the base for good. Them girls have to make out how they could. Brother is now they pack up in tongue. In for a penny and in for a pound. Believe me, it's competition for so. Trouble in the tongue when the price drop low. So when you bumps up Gina and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina, on the corner posing that your life is something they sell it. Now you catch them broken, you can get them all for nothing. Go make a row. The Yankees gone, Sparrow take over now. The thing's bad is to hear them cry. Not a sailor in tongue, the nightclub's dry. Only West Indians like me or you go in to get a drink or two. And as we have things back in control, I seeking revenge with my heart and soul. Brother, when I spread the news around, it's to see how them cavemen come in the tongue, just to meet Miss Gina and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina. Round the corner posing, bet your life is something they're selling. And when you catch them broken, you can get them all for nothing. Don't make a row. Well, the Yankees on Sparrow take over now. glamour boys again. We are going to rule for the spade. No more Yankee to spoil the fete. Dorothy have to take what she get. All of them who used to make style, well, they take in 2 shilling with a smile. No more hotel to rest your head. By the sweat of thy brow, thou shalt eat bread. Mama, you is Gina and Diana, Rosie, Gerald, and Tina. Now we call them closing. Bet you like is something they're selling. When you catch them broken, you can get them all for nothing. Don't make a row. The Yankees lost, Sparrow take over now.